I'm really enthusiastic today to introduce you to somebody that I am meeting for the first time. His name, I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, as I know his name is Jeff Rollins, but I'm really enthusiastic to be sharing this story with our audience, most of whom are serving time in prisons and jails across America. Jeff, I want to welcome you to the Prison Professors Program. Thanks so much for spending this Saturday afternoon with us.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be here.
So Jeff, why don't we start off by letting the audience know how you and I connected and where you are right now in your life?
Sure. You and I connected through a mutual friend, Justin Paperny. And Justin and his team have helped me in the last 3 months as I've gone on my journey through this very difficult federal charge of conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. And he and his team have helped me with connect me to you and work through the personal reference letters, developing a personal narrative, character reference letters, and getting me all the way to the point where now I'm facing sentencing. So that's where he brought me to you.
So let's back that up a little bit. You mentioned that you're a healthcare professional, and I'd like to hear a little bit about your story. But before we get there, I want you to know what we're going to do with your story with hopes that you can help our audience. Is that okay?
Certainly.
So you know a little bit about me, right? You know that I was in prison for 26 years.
Yes, sir.
And you know that I try to teach and inspire people who are serving time. It's, there's this saying of not Nelson Mandela, but Gandhi, who says, try to be the change that you want to see in the world. Well, after having gone through 26 years in prison, one of the things that I always wanted to do was to help more people in prison come back strong with their dignity intact and opportunities to succeed and prosper. I imagine that you want to do something like that as well.
Absolutely. I do.
So you can really help us with that effort because you're still home, and you can help us a lot by helping people understand your journey of what led you to become a healthcare professional, what you did to become a business owner and a business professional, how long you were in business, and then ultimately what led you into the crosshairs of a government investigation, and then how you responded, how much it cost you, and what you expect to do, God forbid, if you go into the prison system, and what you want to do with the rest of your life. And one thing I can promise you is I'll be 100% open and transparent with you. There's nothing you can't ask me. I just want to be able to ask you questions that will help people who are sitting in jails and prisons right now. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yes, sir.
So how old are you, Jeff? You look pretty young.
44 years old.
Super young, because I'm 57. So man, I got to say you are just a baby. So you're 44 and you got into the healthcare space. Why don't you walk us through what inspired you to want to get into that space? What kind of student were you in high school and college?
Sure. I was always a pretty good student, middle of the road student. But I've always had just a keen interest in business and entrepreneurship. And I've always liked creating businesses. And about 12 years ago, through mutual friends, I ventured my way into the healthcare space. It was my first foray into healthcare. And from there, we myself, along with other business partners, bought and grew a pharmacy.
Slow it down a little bit. Slow it down, because that was just 12 years ago. Take us back. Where did you go to college?
I went to Franciscan University.
Where's that?
Steubenville, Ohio.
In Susanville, Ohio?
Steubenville.
Steubenville. And what did you study at Franciscan University?
Yeah, I majored in marketing and management, but it was a good foundational school. I did learn a lot of philosophy and theology along the way. Good Catholic university.
Were you a good high school student?
I was pretty good. I was middle of the road, 3.5, GPA. Had a couple different scholarship offers, and I decided to go to Franciscan.
So that's a really good way of assessing it, because a lot of the people that are watching our show in jail and prison are are having their first experience in education, meaning they may have gotten their GED, they may not have finished high school and they got their GED and they want to go on. But what I just learned, a takeaway from you, Jeff, that I would like all of our listeners to understand is you earned a 3.5 GPA, and you just described that as being middle of the road, where I would call that's pretty good. That's a B+ average.
Right.
So the takeaway for our people, our audience in jail and prison, is realize you got to do a little bit more work than just getting a GED if you want to prosper in society, because here's a guy who did prosper in society, and he only looked at a 3.5 GPA as being middle of the road, but it's really a B+ average. And congratulations on getting that, Jeff, because I know it took a lot of hard work.
Thanks, Michael.
And you said you studied marketing and management. Could you help those in our audience who may not understand what marketing means?
Sure. My degree was business administration with a concentration in marketing and sales. So marketing is taking any business, it's taking a brand, and it's going out into the world, the country, and developing a plan to put those brands or businesses on the map, per se. So it's to take something, I've been really good at taking something that has never existed and create that brand, create that business. So marketing was my specialty, was my foray. I enjoyed it very much. Marketing goes hand in hand with sales, and that was my degree, and I went from there.
So let me see if I can correct. I'd like you to correct me if I'm wrong, as I try to, really simplify it for somebody who's in jail, who's not so familiar with marketing and sales and the difference. So marketing, as I understood what you just said, is bringing somebody that's not aware of the company maybe into awareness of what the company does. And sales is actually turning that person from somebody who's got an awareness into a customer that bought something. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes, that's what I would say. Yes.
So marketing leads to sales, and it's really important for any company to have a good marketing plan. That's something that we at our team are always working on. How do we make more people aware of the prison system? And what we sell them is, if we're selling an institution, like if you're watching this program, I'm always selling jails and prison administrators and saying, we want to bring more courses into your jails and prisons to teach the inspiring stories of Jeff Rollins and people like that, because there's a lot we can learn from a guy like him. And,
Right.
And so that's very helpful that we understand marketing is bringing people in. And what skill set does somebody have to develop a career in marketing? What essential core skills should that person work toward?
Well, that's a great question, Michael. I can tell you that my core set of skills is just being very persistent, being very creative, allowing yourself to think outside the box. That's a lot what marketing is. It's having a persistent attitude, of being very organized and following your objectives for marketing to create whatever you're working towards, whether that's a business or a brand.
Would some core skills of doing that include, really simple, that anybody could learn, even if they're in jail or prison, writing? Would writing be a skill to develop, to be able to put words into sentences and sentences into paragraphs?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. That's very important.
So if somebody wants to say, wow, I'd like to get a career in marketing, one of the core skills that they may want to develop is writing, right?
Yes.
And maybe another one might be art, to learn how to work with images and graphics, correct?
Correct. That's very true. Correct.
So those are two core concepts that go with marketing is learning how to message effectively to attract attention from a potential consumer.
Yes, that's right.
And that marketing skill, Jeff, what different professions does that apply to? You said you're in healthcare, but doesn't marketing apply to any business?
Absolutely. It applies to any business and any profession, and to anybody. You're marketing yourself every day.
Sure. If I want to meet a girl, I got to market myself, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
If I want to get a job, I've got to market myself as a good candidate.
Absolutely correct.
So it doesn't matter.
You have to find a way to stand out.
It doesn't matter if I want to go into the business of landscaping, mechanical engineering, diesel repair, bicycle shop, florist shop, laundry. All of those businesses will be better off if they can hire a good marketing man.
That is 100% correct.
So that is a great, useful tool for anybody who's watching our videos today. Sometimes people in jail and prison, Jeff, you might not believe this, but they go through a GED program and they get the certificate and they think that's the end game. But the reality is they've always should be working to develop their communication skills, because it's the communication skills that's going to lead to jobs in marketing. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And it leads to sales, and sales leads to profits, and profits lead to bonuses.
You're right on. It's a endless cycle.
It's an endless cycle. But see, somebody like you who became very successful in building businesses, you now take it for granted. But people who live in jails and prisons across America, they need to realize, wow, I should be investing in myself. And I'm so grateful to you for helping us convey that message.
Yes. And I would also say, staying structured and organized is a very, important element as well. That will lead you to defining those goals, those marketing goals, and ultimately achieving that success on the back end.
Well, I want you to know that you're giving some great wisdom and guidance to more than 100,000 people who are looking at the Prison Professors program inside of a jail or a prison right now. They may not have access to talk to you like I am, but they can listen and learn, and hopefully I can ask enough insightful questions that will just lead them along the line. So just bear with me if I really slow you down and ask you to break it down for me. So after you graduated college, and when was it that you graduated college?
I graduated early, 3.5 years. I graduated in 1997.
So we heard Jeff talk about the importance of persistence, and you could see a real life example of that. He didn't wait for the full 4 years to get through college. He pushed himself to graduate early, and that's what you should be doing. If you're in a jail or a prison right now, we encourage you to push yourself so that you can really advance. Maybe you could give us a little clarity on that, Jeff. Why was it that you pushed yourself to graduate in 3.5 years instead of 4?
It was just the burning desire to get out into the marketplace and start to earn money, earn an income, and the excitement of trying to finish early. So that was the goal.
So that is really great insight, because a lot of guys in jail and prison, they'll say, oh, I don't have to rush through this thing. I can just carry it out. I'm serving 10 years. There's no reason for me to push myself. I'll stretch this out over years. But the reality, as Jeff just described, is the sooner you hit one goal, the sooner you can start working toward another goal. He started earning money, and he was driven to become successful. So he pushed himself to get his degree as soon as he could, so he could get out there and start getting the rewards of all that education.
That's right. That's exactly right.
What did you do after 1997, Jeff? You graduated college early, young guy, full of ambition. Tell us what you did.
Well, graduating with a marketing degree, I went right in and opened up my own marketing practice.
Well, what does that mean? Help our audience understand what that means.
Sure. So I my brain works as an entrepreneur. So I just created something from scratch. I went and started helping other people. In my specific case, right out of college, I was very, very interested in motorsports, cars, auto racing. So I went to the local tracks in Nashville, Tennessee, and I helped market those race car drivers. So I would go and develop a plan for them to get their name out. And I would, work with them from Nashville over to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I started working for myself, and it started paying dividends.
So it's one thing to talk about wanting to be successful. It's quite another thing to actually do it. And what Jeff told us he had to do is first he had to become good at writing, good at communicating. He had to become good at artwork so that he could help somebody else tell their story more effectively than that person could. That's what marketing is doing. What type of marketing materials did you create, Jeff?
Created press releases for these clients. Created their own brand. So for auto racing, they have to stand out if they're trying to attract sponsorship. And to attract sponsorship, you have to have some type of package, a promotional piece that shows who you are, who they are as a race car driver, what they've accomplished. And so I would put together the packages for these racers and then help them go out and attract sponsorship, which ultimately the more sponsorship dollars they get, then the better their budget is, and they can travel around the country.
And how did you price your services? Are you free to talk about what somebody could understand? If you could deliver value, how did you put a price on the time that you would invest to help somebody else market himself?
Sure. So right out of college, wow, I thought I knew everything, and I did not know anything. As far as pricing, I took the hard knocks course on this. I always, right out of school, I tended to undervalue myself and undervalue my services. So I would, take any amount of money, and it was, $20 to $1,000. I was all in between. I didn't have a set goal or set guideline for pricing. But now, after 20 some odd years of wisdom, I know you need to set your pricing, and people will pay, for what you're worth. So I always aim high now, now aim high, and you can always negotiate, down if you have to.
Did you were practicing your craft in 1997, right after you graduated? That was already just kind of starting the internet era. Did you become skilled as an internet marketer as well?
Well, you were forced to. Yes, I think everyone during that time period, at the boom, the beginning of the internet, you were forced to learn it. So technology is always changing. The internet became a big boom, and yes, we started going from traditional formats in paper to now creating internet websites and internet design. So yes, we had to learn all of that. I learned all of that.
And again, whether it's internet design or whether it's paper or whether it's television advertising, at its core, what you really have to learn how to do is to turn words into paragraphs, paragraphs into sentences, or words into sentences, sentences into paragraphs, paragraphs into pages, so that you can either do press releases, you could write copy for a website, you could write a magazine article, you could write anything. It all starts with words and pictures.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And technology. So we've always got to keep learning. And how long did you work as an independent marketing professional?
I did that for a few years, and then I just started gaining more confidence and experience, and started opening up other ventures. That led to other business ventures.
So one of the interesting takeaway points here, Jeff, is when you started to market yourself, because you're running a marketing company, you got to kind of market yourself. I can help you. How many of those people asked you to fill out a questionnaire to say, did you ever serve time in prison?
Oh,
never. No. It's okay to say never.
Yeah, never. And
you know why it's important that I ask you that question? Is because I want you to help me communicate this message to somebody in jail or prison to say, hey, you got to live in the world as it exists. And if you go to pursue a W-2 job someplace, they may ask you, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Have you ever been to prison? And you're going to have to write yes. But if you tell them, I can bring you more sales, let me show you how to make your company more money, people are going to say, come on in. They don't care.
That's right.
Right?
You're exactly right.
And
You're
so
exactly.
that's the way he built his business, is by becoming exceptionally skilled at what he did. And he did that by focusing on some exercises that anybody who's watching this video can do right now. Learn how to become more effective with language, with art, communicate a message, and you will bring value to the marketplace, and nobody will care if you've been in prison or not. They will only care if you can bring value.
You're right. That's 100% true.
So I really appreciate you for validating that, because I think people need to hear it from real professionals like you. So you built your career in marketing after several years, and then you said you continued your entrepreneurial journey. Are you free to tell our audience a little bit about some of the businesses you began before you went into healthcare? And I can just kind of ask questions that would have been interesting to me when I was locked inside of the place of free room and board.
Yeah. So from there, I started building a tax and financial planning business. And from that foray, I went into, after financial planning, I went into the healthcare space. So that pumped me right into the healthcare space.
Before we get to healthcare, let me ask you about tax and financial planning. You said that you had a degree in expertise in marketing and management and sales, but you went into tax and financial planning. Were you a licensed professional, or did you do this service with somebody else?
No, I was not a licensed professional. I hired licensed professionals. That's the key point is I hired CPAs and enrolled agents that helped prepare tax returns for my clients. And then I became a financial planner. So I had no financial experience, but I studied and then ultimately got my Series 7, 63, 66 licenses, and ultimately became a stockbroker. But during that time period, it was more of a financial planner.
That's really an interesting lesson that we can give to people in jail and prison, because what we just heard Jeff say is he didn't have the licenses, but he could hire people. What he did have was the skill to find clients. That's where marketing becomes so essential. So you could find clients and then hire people to do the job. And really, Jeff becomes a quarterback of the team, or the coach of the team.
That's exactly right. And it's just putting the pieces of the puzzle together as you go through the journey.
And did you do well in that profession?
I did. Yeah. I started off with, again, 0 clients in tax preparation. And I think I capped out about 350 clients. I started out with $0 under management, which means I managed people's money. They trusted me to manage their money. And I ended up with over $10 million of managed money in just a couple years.
And did you operate under that 2 and 20% model? 2% management fee, 20% commissions or percentage?
My model was a little different. I chose the model. I did flat rate model, and I did a 1% per year wrap fee for my clients. So I took all commissions off the table. I wanted to position myself on the same side of the table with the client. And, if they made money, then I made money. And if they lost some money in the market, then I did as well. So that's how I, try to position myself against what everybody else was doing during that time period.
So that's consistent with our model, is never ask anybody to do anything that you are not doing. If you want to succeed in life, you've got to be willing to put in the work and ride the wave of success and struggle the difficulty if difficulties come. But we own our own decisions. That's one of the lessons we really advocate here. And it sounds like that worked pretty well for you. So
it did.
So I appreciate you sharing that, Jeff. And now we can turn into healthcare. So you got into the healthcare space. How?
Yes, I sold those companies, and part of what I did was network extremely well with people. And after I'd sold the tax company and financial planning company, I'd met multiple healthcare professionals, specifically multiple pharmacists that already were in the pharmaceutical space. And that area, it was very intriguing. It interested me. It seemed, it's been now 11 years. So back in 2010, the healthcare space was booming. Pharmacies were making money all across the country, expansion. So I met up with a handful of investors and ventured into the pharmaceutical space.
And when you ventured into that space, so that means you started in 2010, you graduated. So you've been 13 years out of college by the time you went into healthcare, correct?
Yes, correct.
And by then you'd already built a number of successful ventures, first a marketing company, then you leveraged that marketing knowledge into building a tax and wealth management. You got additional education. You just never stopped learning.
Never stopped learning, always looking at new business opportunities all across the board.
And you found that opportunity in healthcare. And tell us about the business that you built. You said that you'd identified and built relationships with pharmacists. It sounds to me like by keeping your head in the game of doing their books, you saw this is a company that's ripe. It's making a lot of money. I want to get my head in the game.
That's exactly right. And so we started our own retail pharmacy and compounding pharmacy in 2010, and started from just, again, a handful of clients, and grew it to where the company was doing gross sales of $10 million a year. Went from one employee to 45 employees.
And was that one location, or did you have multiple locations?
One location that operated down in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, down on the Gulf Coast. But we had licenses. It took a while. We had licenses in all 48 states. So we were able to ship across the country.
So it sounds like you were able to leverage a lot of your expertise in taking one physical location, but then using your marketing expertise to use digital marketing to reach people in 47 additional states.
That's correct. We did that. Yeah.
And were you the head of marketing for the company?
I was. Well, I wore. I guess I was the jack of all trades, master of none. I wore so many hats. You have to do that in business. You have to be able to be flexible, and I wore all the hats. From head of marketing to HR. So it was a very interesting and difficult endeavor, but we made money. That was the bottom line. At the end of the day, we were doing right by patients and making money.
I heard one entrepreneur describe it as being an entrepreneur is the only job where you work 80 hours a week in order to avoid taking a 40-hour-a-week job. Is that about that right?
That's accurate. That's right.
So you had to work extra hard, but you built an amazing company to grow it to 45 employees, providing jobs for a lot of people, $10 million in revenues, certainly supporting a lot of tax revenues and paying for the prison system in the great state of Mississippi. Those taxes. But you built something that you must have been very proud of. Did that pharmacy also sell sundry items like shampoos and postcards and candles and all those kinds of things as well?
Sure did. Yeah, it was what you think in your mind is just a normal retail pharmacy, like any of the Walgreens out there, any of those types of pharmacies.
And was it an independent pharmacy? It wasn't part of one of those big box chains?
Correct. It was an independent pharmacy.
And when did you start recognizing that you might be having some problems with regulators?
Well, we had I was one of 7 owners of the pharmacy. So, and I was the youngest owner of the pharmacy. But we ran into problems around May of 2019. Our pharmacy was raided by the FBI, and that's when we had serious problems at that point.
So let's kind of backtrack that for people, because we've got people at every age and every stage of the journey watching our program. Many of them are in prison. Some of them are watching at home right now. So does that mean that in April of 19, you had no idea you were under the scrutiny of any government agency, or did you have some shots over the bow earlier?
We did have some shots over the bow, as you say earlier. I would say prior to 2019, we had an inquiry back in 2015. 2015.
So let me stop you there. So in 2014, business is rocking, feeling great, not a care in the world.
Yes. 2012, 2013, 2014, we are blowing and going. Everything is going extremely well.
Feeling great about your policies and procedures, not a concern at all that there's any problem.
Not a concern at all.
And then 2015, something kind of makes you lose a little bit of sleep at night. Tell us what it was.
Sure. 2015, we had grown our pharmacy, like you said, up to 45 employees, and had multiple sales reps across the country. And we found out that we had a rogue doctor that was writing bogus scripts, bogus prescriptions. So we didn't employ him, but he was writing bogus prescriptions to our pharmacy. And we had the FBI come to our pharmacy and walk through it and talk through. But that was the beginning of there was something amiss.
So let me stop you there, because I think I heard you say that in 2015, you discovered that a pharmacy was a doctor was writing bogus prescriptions. Is that right?
Correct. That's right.
So you discovered that before the FBI came to see you. Is that right?
That's right.
So here's my question for you, because it sounds like you had an internal investigation of some kind that let you know, hey, this doctor's not on the up and up. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is the process that should have been followed, if you could have gone back and reverse engineered all of this 6 years ago, had you said, internal investigation, red flag is up, what would have been the appropriate response? Would it have been turn the doctor in? Would it have been notify the board of pharmacy? What would it have been?
All of the above. Right, what you just said. It would have been notify the board of pharmacy, notify the DEA, notify
the doctor. We're not doing any more prescriptions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is really important information. Had you seen this video in 2014, and you then learned in 15, hey, we got a doctor that we're a little concerned about, would you have taken action that's a little bit different from what you did?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
And that's a really important point, Jeff. How much money did it cost you by not having this information back in 2014?
Oh, it's cost millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars in legal fees, in lost sleep, in family stress, in so many. It's just been a parade of horribles.
Yes. It's the one thing what I can't do is I can't turn back time. I can't change the clock back. And if I could, believe me, I would. I'd make different decisions. But you have to own those mistakes. You have to own it, and you have to man up and admit your wrongs and move forward.
That is absolutely right. That is excellent advice. And I hope that everybody who's watching this program pays attention. Because even though you may be in prison, there's going to come a time when you're going to go back into the world, and you are going to find these types of ethical and dilemmas that you've got to make a hard decision. My guess is you didn't want to take that action, Jeff, because it was a lucrative business and you didn't want to disrupt it. Is that right? That's
correct. For my case, I turned a blind eye. You tend to look the other way. And I had, like I said, I was one of 7 owners. And so sometimes you take the shortcut in life and you look the other way, even though there's wrong going on. And even though you can see that I could see the red flags, I chose to be willful blindness. I chose to be ignorant.
That is the exact phrase I was looking for, willful blindness. And when people are in the midst of a business that is thriving, a lot of times they will be willfully blind. And so they kind of know it, but say, well, I didn't see it. But the problem is, if somebody takes that approach, they can expose themselves to significant hardship later. And sadly, that's something that you experienced starting in 2015. So you said you received an inquiry. Could you tell us about that inquiry and how you responded?
Yeah, sure. So in 2015, we had the inquiry at the pharmacy. The FBI came in and toured the pharmacy, looked at everything, and after meeting with multiple lawyers, we had determined that we had properly cut ties with the rogue doctor and their associates, and thought that we were back on the quote unquote righteous path, even though the storm was just brewing. So.
And a lot of people don't realize that how easily decisions at that stage can go from a civil investigation and rapidly escalate into a criminal investigation. Sometimes when the FBI asks a question, they don't tell the truth, not recognizing that lying to a federal officer is an entirely different federal crime.
Right. And this, from 2015 to now in 2021, I've learned plenty of life lessons regarding government investigations. But what I take away from a lot of this is that sometimes they at a 7 owners of that pharmacy, there was only 2 of us paying the ultimate price. Right now there's only 2 of us that they wanted to target and go after. So that's not fair, but life's not fair. So you just got to deal with it. I have to deal with it.
And you're dealing with it in a manner that is really quite honorable, in the sense of owning your own personal responsibility and what you've done, and helping more people understand what you wish you would have done differently. You can't change the past, but you can try to be the change that you want to see in the world, helping more people understand that. And I want to applaud you. It takes a lot of courage to get on here and say, "Me culpa, I did the wrong thing. Wish I had done better." And that is what's so valuable to other people who are going through struggle, and people who might not be in struggle yet, or people who are stuck in prison right now, because we all have to learn from these lessons. And I just want to thank you for sharing that with us.
I would also say, just to add to that, Michael, and I thank you for that, but I would add that be careful who you choose as your partners. If you're in an ownership with 7 other people, that can be a dangerous area for you. You are ultimately responsible for what other people do in a partnership. And if you're an owner of a business, you're a part owner of a business, then you have potential liabilities that someone else may be doing wrong, but you're exposing yourself to that. And that's what I did. I exposed myself to other people's wrongs as well.
And so when you were going through a government investigation, I assume that you first had to hire attorneys that are specialists in civil litigation before you hired criminal defense attorneys. Is that right?
We did. Yeah, we had multiple attorneys on the civil side of healthcare law, and then, of course, jumped right into the criminal side after that.
When did you learn that you were a target of a criminal investigation?
I learned I was a target on September of this past year, September 2020.
So between 15 and 20, you had nearly 5 years of just trauma and gray cloud hanging over your head, not knowing what was going to happen. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. We had, I had moved forward from that position. I had moved forward from the pharmacy, and I had, from 15 to 2020, I had pivoted and continued to open up other business ventures. I continued to open up 2 other successful bars that I owned. I opened up a hospice company from scratch. So I continued to go into business ventures, not knowing that that was still out there, not knowing that hurricane could come in at any time, and it did. It showed itself in a very ugly way this past
Dramatic,
September. Very
dramatic place.
dramatic.
So you're going on to create more jobs in the community, thinking that that's behind you, investing in businesses and paying taxes that go to
Yes.
support school districts and roads and bridges, but
Yep.
not knowing that there's an entire group working behind the scenes, plotting to say, we're going to get them.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And
That
then
happened.
when they were ready, you don't even know it, but when they were ready, how did they come in and let you know in September of 2020?
So in my case, it was a little different, but they gave me what's called a reverse proffer. So they invited me and my attorney to their headquarters there on the Gulf Coast, and said, we want to have a reverse proffer. Basically, they wanted to show me what they had on me: the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Assistant U.S. Attorney's Office. So I sat there for 2 hours and watched a presentation of everything that they said I did.
Could you tell us about what that presentation looked like? Was it a U.S. attorney saying, here's the case we're going to build against you? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So it was probably a 35-page PowerPoint presentation plus a binder in front of me that everybody had, and it laid out specifics from 2013 to 2019 for the pharmacy, and it laid out specific details that I was accused of conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, along with a multitude of other charges that they were going to pile on me. You know, they had threatened me with mail fraud, wire fraud, healthcare fraud. There was probably 2 or 3 other charges, and so they made it very. It was a very scary time. They said I was going to go away for a very long time if I took it to trial.
So you said that took place in September of 2020. Does that mean in August of 2020 you thought it was kind of dormant? It was a civil matter?
Yeah, I thought it was over. Naively, one of the other owners had tragically passed away in a car accident, and he was what you would call the main pharmacist. He was the ringleader, so they say. And when he passed away, I thought it was over. I thought the investigation would just go away. The statute of limitations were almost expiring on the conspiracy side. So, but now, as proof is the pudding, it was not over.
They called you. You said that you went to this reverse proffer. Did your attorney tell you the danger of a reverse proffer? Did you understand that before you went to the meeting?
I learned it pretty much the day before. He said, basically, don't say a word. You're not allowed to talk. You just let them do all the talking, which I did. I didn't say anything. But it was I had to move past that to quickly decide whether I was going to fight the charges or not, or be forced to take a plea deal.
This attorney that you took with you to that reverse proffer meeting, did you have a prior engagement and relationship with this attorney, or did you just hire this defense attorney specifically for that reverse proffer engagement?
Yeah, I hired him specifically for that.
So you were relatively new in working with this defense attorney.
Correct. Yes, I was. Which in turn, I'd hired him to go on and continue and finish, my being my defense attorney again all the way through. My sentencing is coming up here in just 2.5 weeks. left. So,
Well, I'm glad that you found somebody that you could trust and could advise you, because I think he gave you very good advice to try and pursue the best possible outcome rather than take it to trial, which could be very expensive and, of course, burdensome on the psyche of just being at peace.
correct. Yes.
What process followed after the reverse proffer? You made a decision, I take it, to plead guilty?
Correct. Yep. I made a very difficult decision. Once I had to go through what's called the statement of facts. Of what you did, what I did, and I was very, very specific in that, because Michael, I can still look myself in the mirror at night and in the morning, and I feel comfortable with what I wrote down on the statement of facts. But ultimately I broke the law. Ultimately it was my responsibility to do more, and I didn't do the due diligence back in back in the early days. I should have taken should have taken other factors and turned in those bad doctors, but I didn't.
You know something, one of the things that we're building now that I'd love for you to be a part of, and I make this offer available to any of our viewers, is we've got this business called compliance mitigation, and we need subject matter experts like you to help go and communicate this message to other people that are vulnerable to investigations, but don't even realize it. Your story is so powerful and so instructive that I think you would be just a great part of our team. And I hope you'll consider joining us when you're free to do that.
Yes, I'd love to. I find it right now, it's part of my mission in life is to help other people that are in the same spots. We all have blind spots that we can't see as we go forward in life and in business. And it sure would have been helpful if someone would have told me how to, be more compliant, or how to mitigate some of my circumstances, in the early days of the pharmacy.
That's why we need a good marketing director. So we hope that you'll join us on that front so we can help other people understand it as well. But Jeff, I think you do have a lot of opportunity and potential to help other people. You've certainly taken a proactive effort by telling your story, because you are going to have, in fact, I'm going to create a quiz for this. It'll be part of a course. And I would encourage you to be thinking about even doing more of writing some type of a course, even while you're in prison or before you go in prison, that really documents your story and lessons that you have learned, so that you can distribute this as a community service volunteer project that really helps you demonstrate what I did in that pharmacy space is not really who I am. I've learned a lot from that. I'm really a guy that worked hard to get through high school, get through college, to learn skills where I'd even think a 3.5 GPA is just moderate rather than really it's pretty good. Build businesses, create jobs, help businesses become successful. You had a misstep here, but this isn't what's going to define your life, and you're going to help me help other people. And I think that we could all be judged by how we respond to a challenge rather than what's the challenge that disrupted our life.
That's right. And you said the key word, one takeaway is being proactive. I've made a conscious decision to be proactive in my journey through this court system, and through, being about to be incarcerated. I chose to be proactive, and I chose not to feel sorry for myself, which a lot of, it's easy to fall in that trap, but I'm not that way. I'm not built that way. I think I've overcome that, and pushing forward to do more, to do more for myself and also for others around me, to show them some of these pitfalls and the things to watch out for.
The key is to really get through this journey, Jeff, with your dignity intact. And the way that you restore that confidence and restore that dignity is by doing exactly what you're doing. Think about how you can make a positive contribution to the world, and don't dwell only on this feeling of being a marionette where other people are pulling the strings and, you don't know what's going to happen. You have the power to lead a life of meaning and relevance and contribution. And you're certainly doing that right now. And I hope that you will continue working with us, even if, God forbid, the judge puts you in prison rather than allows you to serve your sentence on home confinement. Do you have any idea on the range that you're looking at?
Yes, I do. The probation officer has so it's all driven by the loss of the pharmacy. So there, the government has taken a stance that the pharmacy had an $18 million loss that was derived from these insurance companies. Even though I didn't make $18 million personally, I have proof that I only made a couple $100,000, but that doesn't matter. So the probation officer has put in her report that they're asking for 10 years of imprisonment, which is the full, that's the max term for conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. And conspiracy is such a wide, so wide. You could drive a bus through that word conspiracy because it could touch anybody or anything. But they're asking for 10 years, and like I said, I've done all my homework. I'm doing everything I can to try to mitigate mitigate that. I've done the personal narrative and the character reference letters, and continuing to do everything I can because I don't want to have any regrets at the end of the day. I want it all out there.
So I want you to understand, Jeff, that I know it's very difficult to look and read a pre-sentence investigation report and know that you've tried to do everything possible to accept responsibility and persuade a judge to get a lower sentence you to something lower. But I want you to understand there are a few different swings at the ball, to use an analogy from baseball. You get up to the plate, you get a couple of strikes, right? The first thing that we want to do, and I think you've just described that you've done that, is do everything possible to prepare for a favorable outcome at sentencing. But that's not where it ends. Once you get in there, you've got to continue building this path of leading a life of contribution and relevance. And you've got to differentiate yourself from thousands of other people in the system. This video that we're creating is one step. These are the steps that I used. And you are going into the system with a different law. There's the First Step Act, for example, that allows you to continue working and then later ask the judge for another look at your sentence and whether continued incarceration is appropriate. Maybe it's to serve your remainder on home confinement. Maybe it's to reduce your sentence. These steps are steps that you can take. They're not easy. As somebody who's gone through 26 years, I can tell you you've got to stay motivated and full of energy as the days turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, and the years and the months turn into years. You've got to stay at it. But if you do, you've got the opportunity to market yourself and demonstrate why you're worthy of relief. And I hope that we can give you some resources and inspiration that'll help you along that way.
Yes. Thank you, Michael. Thanks.
Jeff, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you that might be of relevance to somebody else who's going through this that you'd like to share?
The only thing I would add is to those that are listening is continue to read and continue to do self-knowledge. I have not stopped reading. Pick up a book, try to read a book a day. So that's I think that's very important. The more you read, again, the more you become well-versed and you're able to put that on paper. So just encourage everyone to do that and continue, which I do. So that's one other piece of advice I'd like to give.
That's what Jeff says. Don't do something. I'm not going to tell you to do anything that I am not doing. And I'm going to task you, Jeff, along with our audience, to do a one step further. Besides reading the book, my advice to you is every time you read a book, write a book report and answer 3 questions in that book report. Number 1, why did I read this book? Number 2, what did I learn from reading this book? And number 3, how will having read this book contribute to my success in prison and beyond? 3 questions, super simple. write a word, write a sentence, write a paragraph, write a whole essay on that. But if you do that, you're going to create some tools that you can use to market yourself and persuade the world why you're worthy of relief. That's the last lesson I wanted to offer. It's in our course. I just want to thank, really from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Jeff. He's facing a very difficult time in his life right now. I know he wants to be with his family, but he took his time to share his story, a story of struggle and difficulty at the start of a lengthy prison term with people who are in difficult circumstances. So Jeff, thank you very, very much. I hope our audience learned something from this. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate it.
Thank you too. Thank you, Michael. Very, very, very much. Enjoyed it.
This is part of the Prison Professor's ongoing continuing education series that we use to teach and inspire people in prison. We couldn't do it without inspiring figures like Jeff Rollins. We're going to have a whole page on it with some takeaway questions, and we hope that you will go through it as we distribute this to people in jails and prisons across America. Thank you.